Hello everybody, my name is Ro and welcome back to another ReZero report. So in this report, I have my good friend Ayvhel joining me once again. Do you want to say hello?
Hello guys.
So this report has one of the biggest and sauciest topics we've ever done, and that is the flaws of ReZero. So, to an average ReZero fan maybe, ReZero might seem like a very good series which has minimal flaws if at all realistically. But, many people online don't think so. So today we'll be addressing the flaws that ReZero has and, the apparent flaws that it has. So, the things people think are flaws which aren't really, that big of a flaw. So what's your say on this topic? Do you think ReZero is a perfect series or do you think it has some flaws?
I don't think any series is perfect, but I do think it's pretty damn good.
I think so as well. So let's just not, meander around. Let's just jump right into it. So one of the biggest things that people say is a flaw of ReZero is that there is no stakes. We've literally had our own friends say this to us that they don't watch ReZero. I'm calling someone out by the way right now, that because it has absolutely zero stakes involved because of return by death per se. So what's your whole take on that?
I think it's the other way around. The only reason the story actually has stakes is because return by death makes it permanent once he goes past a certain point.
For me, right? Any series that I watch/read, right? For me, there's two types of stakes involved. One of them is a physical stake, right? So what?
And then there's emotional stakes, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So as in the physical stakes, I'm just, so if like Subaru in season 1 were to face off against Puck or something, right? He would physically stand no chance, right? But then there's emotional stakes involved. Emotional stakes are what the character's mental health is, right? So a good story has both of them, right? A good story can have the psychological aspect involved as well. So whenever return by death happens, we can see, like literally as a big plot point, Subaru's mental health deteriorating. We can see him like dwindle mentally. And to me, I think that is greater than any physical stake in the story.
And also, no two loops are the same, so it's not like he can go back and redo everything exactly the same, because the more that he dies in a loop, the more that he smells of the witch, which means everyone trusts him less. So imagine a video game where every time you die the game gets harder. I wouldn't call that a game with no stakes.
I completely agree with that. And also the fact that, right, people say that, ReZero has no stakes, it's repeating the same thing again, it can get boring. But to me, right, the fact that it's constantly repeating certain things again and again, right, it gives us a different chance to interact with other characters as well. So, for example, in the very first loop stuff, right, we got to interact with, the guy selling the fruits, right? Which we wouldn't have but if it didn't have that sort of repeating thing, right? So the constant of different characters getting involved after return by death, right, adds so much more to the story and the world itself. Which any reader,
and it creates the limitations for the story, because he's got a limited amount of assets and a limited amount of time to pass that. It's almost as if it's a level, right, with the game comparison. He has to pass that level only with the things that are available to him. So and it's sort of a puzzle, and he gets to explore the different pieces of the puzzle before he goes at his final attempt, I guess.
He doesn't know when his return by death will be, if it will be after the bad event or before the bad event. He can't really control at what point he can go back into time, right? So I feel like that
perfect example. Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say an example.
Alright, so for to me, I feel like that adds a sort of mystery to it, a sort of enigma to it, where it's dude, this is not a perfect system that you're using. At any point in time, you're literally making your house out of hay right here. At any point in time, it can collapse and you will be screwed over, right?
Perfect example is what happened to Rem.
Yeah, exactly.
He tried to kill himself to go to before that point, but he couldn't anymore.
Yeah. And
you cannot create that kind of stakes if you don't have return by death work the way it is, because if you have it be something more controlled, then he would have known and be able to prepare and kill himself before to redo it. But the whole fact that he doesn't know, and that he's in the dark just as much as us for most of the series, creates that tension.
Yeah, so to me, I feel like the claim that people have in saying that there's no stakes, right? I feel like it's absolutely appalling, where I think ReZero is one of the isekais with one of the most stakes, actually. And like, even in general, right? If you look at the world where, you know, there's constantly some sort of threat posing, right? And you know how strong the world is, right? One misstep and you're all dead in that world. So,
and you know
like,
what the biggest problem with that is? With that argument?
Yeah.
Is that you can extend it to any story. You know Naruto's not gonna lose, you know Luffy's not gonna lose at the end of the day, because they're the main character. So if you go with the kind of approach of, I know they're not gonna lose, well, that's 90% of anime that you don't think have stakes.
Yeah.
In 90s, you watch a romance, you know that the two main characters are getting together by the end.
Some romances.
I mean, in most cases, right? So actually, I think the fact ReZero isn't afraid to take characters out, even if they're not the main character, it isn't afraid to take characters out, only adds to the tension. Because you're not even thinking of the possibility of Subaru dying, because that's not gonna happen, he'll just be back. So that lets you focus on everything around him and his mental state, as you said before.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest themes of, you know, ReZero, mental health, right? And, you know, one of the most cathartic episodes in Season 2 was focusing on mental health with, you know, Subaru's mother and his father, and what it means to be supportive and what it means to, you know, be around someone, get around someone. I feel like that sort of thing is so, you know, vital to the story itself, where, you know, like, I'll be honest, that's the main captivating point for me, because Subaru was not a good guy in terms of perfection. He was not perfect, right? He was trying things from his, like, heart, but, like, mentally, he was not up there. So that's what hooked me into the series.
And that's the thing. The reason that you're able to have moments like that, or like Rem's confession in Season 1, is because they take their time with each loop. You get to see how it affects his mental state, right? Imagine being in a world where you have a deeper connection with anyone than they will ever understand. Because he has spent, for a lot of people, it might seem super obsessive the way that he acts to save people that he's known for technically 5 days, for example. But he has actually known them for like, what, a few weeks? More? A month? Of retries?
And this brings me to my next point, right? What you were like speaking about, right? Another big thing people say is that they don't like ReZero because of Subaru and his flaws as a character, which to me just seems like the most hypocritical and, like, you know, it just seems like a convoluted argument to make against the series itself. Because to me, I feel like ReZero's, you know, ReZero's like allure is Subaru's flaws, where, you know, he's, like, as I said before, he's not a perfect character. And to me, you know, a character with flaws is the reason why, like, I want to, you know, associate myself with the character, because I can see his improvement occur.
I get it for Season 1, because at the start it feels like his character is going nowhere. Like, there isn't really gonna be a change.
I feel like there's subtle build-up, though. I feel like there's subtle build-up.
That's why I say, like, at the start, but once you see it start to pay off. Like, for example, one thing that I think a lot of people confuse two things. I might be completely wrong here. Guys, correct me in the comments. If an anime makes you feel like shit, that's better than it making you feel nothing. And a lot of times where Subaru acts in certain ways, I just pause, I walk around my room, I go back, I play like 5 seconds, I pause, I walk around my room, because I hate every moment, but that's what makes it good, because it got me invested in the characters in the first place. Indifference is what would be bad, not disliking him. I think in a lot of ways that's the whole point. You start by disliking him, and over time, you grow to like the character.
Yeah, I mean, let me just bring another, like, very popular character into this. Light Yagami, right? People can say they hate Light Yagami, right? But they probably won't say they hate Death Note, because I think Light Yagami is a brilliant character in Death Note. The fact that he has this god complex, right? Like, it adds value to the series itself, and, you know, it's in contrast with L. Meanwhile, like, you know, Subaru's, like, flaws are in contrast with his world, right? It's just, to me, it seems like something which is vital to the story, right? Like, if you're watching Death Note, there's times when you're like, Light, what the hell are you doing? You're literally, you know, being corrupted by this, right? But that is the, you know, aspect of the story which, you know, makes it what it is. And I don't think it's a, you know, realistically, like, it's not like a flaw for the series itself, it's a flaw in the character. right? And that's like intended.
The thing that I'm thinking right now is like, I don't think Subaru is a perfectly written character. I just don't think that he's a poorly written one, right? There's a few lapses where I go like, I think he outgrew certain aspects of himself too fast. Like going from complete meltdown to I'm good too fast. If I had to say a flaw in his character, I would like it to be a bit more slow-paced.
Like a subtle progression of it, instead of like
slightly
a quick
more slow. Yeah. But I get it, because it's those big moments, and you don't wanna like. You want the big moment to have like a big change, so that it feels as important as it does. That's why episode 18, episode 14, season 2, episode 4, if I'm not wrong, which are big turning points. Like for example with Otto, the fact that he just befriends Otto like that, like as fast as they do, after not being able to have like a real friend.
That's actually one flaw I'd say is in the series. I wish like, certain side characters would have like more of like a, prominence in terms of like build up.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a flaw which I think is very well justified. Correct me if you by the way, in the comment section, if anybody has rebuttals to anything right like this, or has like their own opinion on certain things, always feel free to comment it, because me and my mate here, we both read all the comments, and we always welcome critical discussions, because we're all about that, right? So
we're open to being wrong. Don't take us. We don't have Light's ego, Light's God complex.
Yeah. Our words are not gospel. They're actually, we're both like shit talkers. We like talking shit about this story. We like discussing, right? So in general, like if you have any, don't leave our stuff to open interpretation, and always comment if you think otherwise. But where was I? Yeah, the side characters. I feel like the side characters, I wish there was more of a build up to them instead of like a automatic like sort of befriending sort of thing. I think it was.
What I think the issue with that is?
Yeah, go on.
Just like a lot of the great things from ReZero come from its structure, I think if I had to point out flaws, a few also come from its structure. It's not perfect. Nothing is, but I think when you're repeating like the same few days over and over again, but only Subaru remembers things, some characters might come out flat because Subaru progresses at a rate that's much different. Right? Because they have to like reset their development tons of times.
I think that's just with the structure though, right? As you said.
Yeah. You can't change that, but I guess that probably makes, by comparison, a lot of the other characters feel flatter.
I totally get that. And then like, the great characters sort of stand out more, right? Like I think example, like a direct comparison would be like One Piece's story structure, where it's an adventure. It's supposed to be like sort of like at points it's supposed to be like a slow burner, right? Where it's like, okay, it's building up to this big moment, right? Things are happening around the world. People, like, everything is changing, right? And that sort of stuff takes a lot of chapters, right? So when people say, oh, One Piece is so long, but like, it's a story which lends itself to being a long-term storytelling prospect. It's an epic, right? So similarly in ReZero, a sort of repetition, right, drastically develops Subaru's character. But also, like, sometimes, like, as I said, sometimes it develops, like, certain sides of one character, certain sides of other characters. But, it doesn't have as, fast pace of a development as Subaru himself.
Yeah, completely agree.
But, one place where side characters, got more prominence was in Season 2. And one of the biggest criticisms I've heard is that Season 2 is boring. I mean, what's your say on that one?
It's less action-packed than the first season. So I think that... I don't think it's like a criticism that's being pulled out of their ass. Personally, I prefer the slower pace of Season 2. It's slower pace. There's no denying that. The arc takes its time, even though I wish it would take even more time, so you can see on what side I am on this. But I think it's understandable if you're expecting more action, because Season 1 had some great moments of action too, while Season 2 has a lot more of this almost detective kind of thing to it, where he's trying to piece everything together. I guess it's one of those... It's not a good or bad thing, it's just a thing. Some might prefer more action. Personally, I prefer Season 2, more focused on the character development and on the mystery side of it.
Look, I'm as much of an action meathead as, any other guy, right? I love
we both love Fate, right? We both love and Ufotable's action scenes with tons of flashy stuff.
I think in our first research report we mentioned this, right? Me and you are both fans of Ufotable, and they're like action scenes, right? It's good, right? But to me, right, like certain stories, right? I don't want that. Like, come on, man. Like, I just want talking, right? I like dialogue, right? So I think that's just the way like the season is in itself, right? It's not everybody's cup of tea. I totally acknowledge that, right? I mean, if you want to consider that as your flaw, because obviously it's a subjective thing, right? So if it's not your cup of tea, it's completely understandable because it's heavily dialogue based, right? But I don't think it's literally like, something like a make or break for the series. It was just a certain aspect they took in one point of the series. You hear the same thing for Vinland's farming saga, like. Yeah, people don't like it, but
and usually it's kind of a shock because it's different, and once you get used to it, you either like it more or you at least accept it.
For sure.
There's a few manga that have like turning points like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people prefer the a lot more realistic side of Berserk early on, right? Doesn't mean that they dislike a lot of the more fantasy aspects, especially that come later on. Same with Vinland, as you said, with Farmland Saga. I think that's just a trend. It's a bit hard to accept something changing what it's trying to do, and it might not work. It might make a change and not be a good change. I can't think of something out of nowhere, but there are shows that maybe you like the formula, they changed it, and you didn't like it as much.
I feel like in a way where they can, like the best way to bring about change is like subtle build up to it, right? If I have Hunter x Hunter, for example, a stark dichotomy of, something like Greed Island versus Chimera Ant, right? Like,
it's completely different.
Yeah. But there was a build up of Gon's character leading up to it, right? I think in ReZero there's enough build up to like this is a very character driven story, so that it's accepted. I don't think it's out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, but there is less action and it's slower paced, and the story season 2 it's basically just in one place for the most part, or 2 places, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, I think that's one. I mean, if somebody were to say that season 2 is like season 2 setting, like isn't that expanded upon, right? I can see that as a potential like thing where I would love
if you want to watch more of the world and you want to see the rest of this world, you probably were disappointed by season 2 not really showing you a lot more than what you already saw, because you've been to Roswell's Mansion, Roswell's Mansion, so you just added one new place to the world, right? And that was like, what, 24 episodes?
Yeah, it was.
So, I get it.
Another thing in Season 2, I feel like most of these criticisms are derived from Season 2, is the animation in Season 2, and even bits of Season 1. People say like the animation quality and production drops.
First of all, I have to say, we have to take into consideration the fact they were giving us 30-minute episodes. Or like 27, right?
Of course.
Every week, that's like 1.5 times the work. Not that much, it's probably like 1.3 or something like that. Someone can do the math somewhere, but over time, that's a lot of extra work they're doing. So I personally was disappointed in a few scenes, like the scene of Echidna's speech where they just put her spinning as a 3D model, right? I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't very impressed with that. But in general, I think they managed to replicate Shinshiro Tsutsuka's style pretty well from the light novels. It looks straight up taken from the light novels, just less detail because it's animated. And I think they did a good job with it. Because it might not have the best looking animation in terms of scene by scene, but I think it has really great visual direction.
Yeah. Okay, for me, right, I'm not gonna fault ever ReZero on production, right? I think the fact that they're doing 30-minute episodes, sometimes skipping the openings and endings, just shows how much they
Plus
care.
the OST.
Yeah, plus the OST. Okay, you know, people be roasting me for not liking the music in season 1, right? I looked at it again. It's pretty good, okay? I'm sorry about that one, right?
You said 8 out of 10. You didn't say you didn't like it, okay?
Yeah, man. Dude, people
For me, it's 10 out of 10, but 8 is good.
I'll bump that up to a 9 listening to it alone, right? But come on, guys, come on. I didn't say it was bad. I just said it was an 8 out of 10. But
this is the thing. I think if you think something is like really good, I don't think it makes much difference if you think it's a 9 or a 10.
Exactly. But either way,
it's one digit. It's not like he's calling it a 3 out of 10. Would never listen to this.
Yeah, but either way, the production, and I would never fault ReZero for the production, because I feel like they're trying their best, and then literally the amount of effort they put into it, like, you know, I would put it on par with like David Productions and their like care for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where like you can clearly see like these guys care about this stuff, right?
And the thing is, White Fox usually doesn't even do sequels. I can't really think of many White Fox sequels besides ReZero.
I mean, that just shows, right? It just shows. But, you know, and it's also important to consider, you know, a lot of these, like, you know, production, like, flaws that people point out are, like, for season 2. And season 2 was made during COVID, guys. Like, it was, like, it's important to recognize that it was made during COVID. And, you know, people were, like, you know, struggling at first to get everything sorted out. And still they hooked us up with, like, a brilliant season. So, I frankly think, like, you know, the bit of the animation blips and stuff can be excused.
Okay, I just checked. There are a few season 2s for White Fox, but not that many. Okay, I guess I'm safe. I was gonna check, like, they're doing more now, because we're getting Demon Lord at Work season 2. We're gonna get that. We got another season of Steins Gate a while ago. So yeah. I was capping. They do season 2s. It's just I didn't remember them doing them.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Nobody's gonna roast you for that. But, you know, as I've said, like, I think a lot of, like, the production stuff can be, like, excused in ReZero Season 2 because of COVID. And, you know, I think there's gonna be a better director's cut out, like always. And, you know, you can't ever fault the care they put into it, as I said again. But now, you know, I think one of the biggest flaws people see in ReZero is not in the series itself, but it's in the waifu wars that occur in the series, to the point where, you know, it gets pretty massive, I think.
Pretty understandable.
I think that's a legitimate flaw, like, frankly.
I don't think it's a flaw with the show. I think it's maybe a flaw with the fan base, but this is the thing, like...
Yeah, I mean, the fan base, of course not the show.
If we take into consideration, and it's obviously not most of the fan base is chill, it's always going to be, like, a few people that are just a lot louder than everyone else.
The vocal minority.
Yeah, it's a very vocal minority usually that makes a lot of fandoms insufferable. I wouldn't go that far with ReZero. I think from what I know, I never like met any ReZero fan that's just too much, but the waifu wars do get to me, and I think it's too much sometimes when people are going kill yourself and that kind of thing.
Okay, like, this is coming from two people who ranked all the waifus, right? That's a fun video, guys.
It's in good fun.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a fun video, all banter, you know.
If you think that that Fortuna is like an F tier waifu, fine.
Nobody cares. Like, dude, everybody has preference to what they like, what they don't like, right? And to me, I think ReZero fandom, right? Before I got into the show, I think people said, like, yo, the ReZero fandom, like, be aware of them. I'm like, what? And then I uploaded my first ReZero video, right? I literally had some of the best experience with the fandom, because, like, the fandom would, like, you know, in the comment section, they would be like, hey, here's a light novel you should read. Hey, make sure you check this out. Don't forget to check out this OVA. Watch it in between this episode, right? I had some person send me the Google Drive link for all of the, you know, all of the light novels and web novels and stuff like that, right? Like, these guys are helpful as hell, and I've seen fandoms which are bad, right?
The ReZero fandom just wants some love, because it gets a lot of hate for being an isekai, because there's a lot of people that just isekai, oh, it's pretty bad.
Nah, man, ReZero fandom is actually one of the better fandoms out there, I think, you know.
I don't think it's good or bad.
I think it's one of
I
the better
remember
ones.
in season 1, I didn't like it very much because no one would shut up about Ram versus Emilia.
I think again, as you mentioned before, I think it's just a vocal minority constantly squealing about that. Like, you know, in shonen fandoms, there's like the toxic power scalers, right? You know them. You've seen them
There's
before.
also the good power scalers.
The good power scalers are fine, but I'm talking about the toxic ones. This is especially true in One Piece, right? There's a certain sect of One Piece fans where they're like always like vocal about power scaling, and I think there's the same thing with ReZero, where there's a certain sect who like is super like into like the waifu wars, and if you say like, hey, I like Emilia, they'll be like, why don't you like Rem? You should go kill yourself, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, like it's again.
But that's not like a flaw with the show even.
Of course, that's just a fandom, and like I would never consider that.
Now I'm curious. I'm curious because we were shitting on the things other people complain about. It's time we complain. What would you say are the biggest flaws in ReZero?
For me, the biggest flaw in ReZero is not enough, like development of some of the side characters. I would want so much more of that.
I got you.
Like you see, like like Beatrice, right? She's one of the more developed characters. She's a very good character, but I wish we'd gotten a bit more, right? Like I just want like more like around the characters. I just want more like fleshed out of the like look into the characters and their psyche and everything like that. Beatrice is one of the bigger ones, right? In which she did get that in season 2 quite a bit. But I just want more of that, right? With Otto, I want so much more. And I think people say to like read the novels for that, but I would love if the anime itself expanded upon it more.
If I had to make a complaint, I don't like the way that season 1 took out a very important scene for setup right at the end, and then put it in a director's cut.
Oh yeah, the Ren scene.
And I don't like that they're probably doing the same for season 2. I think I have a few annoyances with that kind of thing. Besides that, the thing is, I think there's things that ReZero could do better. I don't think there's like big holes, like very big holes, like big flaws. I think there's a bunch of little things that maybe add up for me. I would like more subtlety sometimes in the way that Subaru turns from depressed to motivated.
Yeah.
I don't know, sometimes I guess it goes a bit too extreme. Sometimes the fall is so fast, and then the rise is just as fast, right?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you there. I really do. I mean,
and besides that, you're right about the side characters, but I think that's something that you can't really fix, because by comparison, everyone will look underdeveloped.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a structural thing. But yeah, I agree with your point as well. Some of the more subtleties I want to be explored more, and etc, etc. But I think that's a pretty good look into like the different flaws people complain about, and we're looking at like realistic takes people have on the series, right? Like I'm glad I'm not bringing a CBR article in here, because
these aren't those taken out of your ass things. I think most of these like have some merit to them. Agree or disagree? There is some merit to seeing these as flaws. I guess then it's not merit anymore, but yeah, you know what I mean. It's not like these are invalid criticisms. I disagree to a certain point, especially the stakes one. The stakes one is the one that gets me going a bit.
Yeah, for me that's the most biggest criticism, where I feel like this is not a criticism, man. Yeah, you're literally not seeing what the story's trying to do. But
I think the stakes one is kind of like going into an ecchi and complaining about the fan service, right? The stakes, it's a time travel story where he goes back. Why are you complaining that it's a time story where he goes back?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that was a pretty good overview at some of the flaws people have, and just addressing them and just generally chatting about them. So as this thing ends, right, I want to say like one thing, right? ReZero is a piece of work, right? Any piece of work is always, open to criticism. And I think criticism is something that should be, promoted, right? I don't think criticism should be, ever, said, no, this thing is too good to be criticized. That's literally, an authoritarian way of looking at things, which, we don't want here. So, so to me, I think there should be a limit. There should be a fine line between criticism of the work itself and the criticism of the artist. Like I recently saw in Jujutsu Kaisen where people were criticizing the art, but then they went ahead and started like dissing the mangaka for it. And then I'm like, dude, the dude is literally suffering through a health issue right now. There's limits to that, right? But that's just one thing. It's
dehumanization of content creators like them, especially because you never get to see mangakas' faces for the most part. I think it.
You saw something similar happening with Isayama recently with Attack on Titan's ending, right? It's so here we're talking about ReZero's flaws, but we're talking about the work itself, right? There's no reason to go after creators of the work or the animators or anything like that, right? That's something we highly discourage. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good summation of the whole addressing of flaws in general, as well as flaws in ReZero. So with that, I think the podcast will come to a conclusion. Do you want to say bye?
Bye everyone, was fun being here.
Alright, bye from me too, and hope you guys enjoyed this. And this might be a little bit of a monthly sort of series, so if you want more of it, please let me know. If you want less of it, please let me know. And subscribe to my friend here. He has good videos, I think.
He doesn't even watch them.
I don't watch them. Bye guys.